Peter King joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Peter?
Everything's going good, Rich. Thanks a lot for contributing. It was great.
Thanks for asking me. I'm giddy, Peter. I got to be honest with you. I am over the moon as a Wolverine, as a guy who bleeds maize and blue. And I say that also looking at my Twitter feed and seeing San Francisco fans who are beside themselves. And it was a rough press conference yesterday for Jed York and Trent Baalke in San Francisco. What do you think their plan is now moving forward?
Well, their plan, I think, is to try to get somebody who can fit in their structure, who can fit in their scheme, can fit in their system, and who they can get along with. I mean, it's very clear that they had a very strained relationship over the last couple of years with Jim Harbaugh. You know, as somebody I quoted yesterday in Monday Morning Quarterback, somebody, very close to that team said, the first year that Harbaugh was there, 2011, everything was very tight. There weren't a lot of leaks. And yet the last couple of years, I mean, it was what I thought was so interesting, Rich, is that the first week of this year, Jay Glazer comes out on Fox on the pregame show. We haven't even started playing football yet. And Jay Glazer says, I can tell you factually that Jim Harbaugh will not be back after this season. Well, what does that do to a team when, if any of their players are watching or they find out about it on Twitter or whatever? What? A coach is gone? What is going on here? So I think that the culture in that building really has to change. And look, I'm happy. Rich, we're in the media. We're happy when we find out things like that. But I think the culture in the building has to change, and they've got to tighten up a little bit. But as for what they need, I said it yesterday, Rich. Whoever coaches this team is going to have more pressure on him. It's going to be like the catcher who succeeded Johnny Bench in Cincinnati. And that's an exaggeration. It is. But think about it. This is the winningest team in the NFC over the last 4 years. And if you're a fan of the 49ers, you're still not sure why it ended.
Yeah, exactly, Peter. And I think that's part of the reason why the press conference went south in a hurry on Jed York and Trent Baalke yesterday, is because we didn't hear the specifics. There's definitely something that happened behind the scenes that a public airing doesn't help anybody with. And we kept hearing the phrase about operating with class over and over again yesterday. And I think that that's sort of, we're cutting around the edges here of what was going on behind the scenes. And that was part of what the issue was yesterday, when you think about it, Pete.
I think you're right, Rich. And I think at the end of the day, I think that creative tension, Jed York and Trent Baalke reading between the lines, watching that, I'm thinking, creative tension is fine. A few arguments is fine, but we need to be able to get along, period, or else we're not going to be able to work together. And it's interesting. I think that Carmen Policy probably deserves to be nominated for a Henry Kissinger Peace Prize or something like that for the work he did in keeping and helping keep the Bill Walsh 49ers together for a decade. Mm-hmm. Because talking to Carmen, talking to Ronnie Lott recently, they were both like, hey, this is nothing new. We have to deal with this every day. And the whole goal was, because you're winning, the whole goal was find some way to scotch tape it together, and we'll worry about tomorrow. But it just, at least for Jed York and Trent Baalke, it got to be too much for them.
Peter King of the MMQB.com joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Ndamukong Suh appealing his one-game suspension from the league. What are the chances that this does get overturned and Suh does get on the field in a crucial game for the Lions in Wild Card Sunday?
Well, Rich, I think that judging by the history of these appeals, most often they aren't overturned. But remember, 2 years ago, Ted Cottrell overturned, who's the hearing officer in this afternoon's appeal between Suh and the league. Ted Cottrell overturned what I thought was an egregious hit by Ed Reed a couple of years ago, and he overturned that and he let Reed play the next week. So I think he's got a fair shot here. I think the whole question is going to be how adamant Suh is going to be and whether Cottrell can believe him that he didn't do it on purpose. It sure looked like he did it on purpose to me.
And as we get started on the playoffs, everybody's already making their their invitations for another Brady Manning showdown in the AFC Championship and potentially a replay of the first game of the season in the NFC. Which team has the ability, in your mind, to bust up either one of those conference championship matchups?
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be a dangerous team, but again, you've got to get by. They've played the Ravens twice in the playoffs at home, and they've won them both. But this is a strange Steelers team. You really don't know what you're going to get on defense. They struggled even a little bit on offense. Now they obviously may be without Le'Veon Bell in this game. But I think if they can survive it, if Bell can get back on the field, I think that's a very dangerous game for the Denver Broncos to try to win in order to get to New England. But again, Rich, I just have this feeling. I think it's New England's year in the AFC. I think they're going to have their sixth opportunity to win a Super Bowl under Brady and Belichick.
And the 2014 MMQB Awards, again, thanks for having me a part of that. The only one where I got it wrong, I guess, or I wasn't with the consensus, was I went Bill Belichick for Coach of the Year over Bruce Arians, Peter. And did any of the results surprise you from that people can go see at the MMQB.com?
I don't think anything really surprised me, but I was pleasantly surprised that, you know, even though I think Aaron Rodgers is exceedingly deserving to be the MVP this year, I was pleasantly surprised that J.J. Watt got 8.5 votes out of 26, including I had 3 players voting: Jason McCourty, Jeff Schwartz, and Ryan Clark. All of them, all 3 players, voted for J.J. Watt. And that's certainly not any indication of what the 50 AP voters will do in the vote that really counts. That'll be announced on January 31st. But at least it gives me hope that it might be a little bit of a race in the MVP instead of just handing it to the next, the most obvious quarterback or most obvious, numbers producer of this year.
Peter, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. We'll chat down the line. Happy New Year to you and yours.
All the best, Rich. Thank you.
You bet. That's Peter King here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.